What if your children were exposed to extremely valuable safety and smart information that didn't sound like Charlie Brown's mother, wah, 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 but was digested in a fun way that then might very well be remembered and used if necessary? What if the deliverer of this information was an adorable red dog named Rocket? And what if your kids knew what Rocket says goes? I know as a parent of former 4 to 9-year-olds, I would have felt relieved and could have used Rocket to reinforce messages to keep my children and their peer group safe. Welcome to Small and Gutsy, a podcast featuring interviews with nonprofit and social impact organizations under $10 million. My name is Laura Whitkoff, and I'm excited and proud to be your host. My hope is that you love the stories as much as we do, and perhaps you will find needed services, a job, volunteer, or donate. Feel free to pass along any valuable information you hear today to others, and remember to send me the name of any organization you'd like featured at reachus@theintrinsicgroup.com. Fun animated characters are sometimes the best teachers because they make kids feel safe and often have fun ways for kids to remember important actions to take, particularly in an emergency. The Hero in You Foundation, founded in 2014 by Bunny and Rick Benarin, aims to reach out and help children from all socioeconomic areas. Initially, the Hero in You Foundation began by honoring the heroic lives of first responders through dedicating 6-foot-tall Dalmatian puppy sculptures to cities, fire stations, parks, museums, and libraries. Today, there are 30 sculptures placed throughout the United States, El Salvador, and Israel. The foundation evolved into educating children on how to stay safe in all emergencies, including natural disasters and dangerous situations, by developing a library of targeted messages through animated videos, books, lessons, and activities at no cost to schools and families. One of the ways the Hero in You Foundation was able to reach young children effectively was through the creation of this friendly red Dalmatian puppy dog named Rocket, who guides children to better understand safety through many situations, and in particular, using their 5 senses. So the Rocket Rules for Safety program was born. I am so excited to introduce my 2 guests today, founder Bunny Benarin and Barry Stockhammer, program director, both with strong educational backgrounds. So let's get started. Welcome, Bunny and Barry. Please share your passion about Rocket Rules and your deep connection and commitment and what led to your involvement. So I don't know who wants to start. Hi.
Hi, Laura. Thank you so much for having us. We're really excited to be here. The way everything started was exactly what you said. We started out donating the sculptures, which did honor firefighters and first responders. My mother was a nurse for 50 years, so I consider her a first responder. The term wasn't actually used then. She was a safety freak in that respect. I feel that my background with safety started at home, and she made sure that everything was safe in our home. The 1994 earthquake came. We lived in Canoga Park, which was just around the corner from the earthquake, and my mother was there during that time. I think that kind of woke us all up to what safety really was all about and what we needed to do to maintain our safety. In the meantime, I had educated kids in South Central Los Angeles, and also obviously saw where safety was an important part of those children's lives. So today what we're doing with Rocket Rules, and that's really the brand that we go under, is Rocket Rules for the Hero in You Foundation. Basically, what we're trying to do is give children the tools so that they can be prepared for any kind of an emergency situation. So these are life lesson tools that they can have through their entire life. And what we've done is taken safety even further than the natural disasters, and now have gone into the necessary emergencies that we're dealing with now in our lives today.
What a beautiful legacy, honoring your mom in some ways and your past and what kind of brought forward in your own life. It's really remarkable where it's transitioned. And Rocket Rules seems to be really effective. Barry, you're the program director. I'd love to hear your thoughts about your commitment and passion about this program and particularly about the character.
Yeah, thank you, Laura. The great thing about Rocket is he connects. He connects to all ages of kids, and in particular, 4-year-olds to 9-year-olds, and all adults love him as well. The issue is, this very carefully age-appropriate scripting that we give to Rocket, his voice, that allows him to connect with young people who don't get, unfortunately, as loving as all parents are, the well-calibrated, well-thought-out thoughts about safety. So, because the goal is simply create a schema in the brains of the kids so that it's not by happenstance that they know what to do in any situation while they're walking home from school or walking to school or in the community, but they actually have a sense that's been built now with Rocket's tools and his message that they understand and they get it. And as we all know as parents, children actually are capable of understanding their world a lot better than we tend to think, but we need to give them the boundary conditions and the sense of, okay, I'm not going to turn right down the alley, or I'm not going to play in a trash area where there might be knives and needles. The exciting part is providing a voice for safety to young people, this very vulnerable age bracket. I was a school principal at the elementary school level for a number of years. And so both our sensitivities, since they come from education, is that kids need these tools, these frameworks to operate within, and they can better and more calmly deal with the world around them.
Absolutely. You've both shared so many interesting points, both where the program evolved to and the necessity of that program. And as you said, it's not that parents don't love and want to keep their kids safe. But I know as my kids are older now, but parents carry an anxiety that gets translated to their kids sometimes, rather than what Rocket does in a very fun, engaging, but clear way, as you pointed out, creates a scenario that then gets embedded in a child's mind. Oh, Rocket says, when this happens, this is what I should do. And it's also an objective outsider, not a parent saying you'll get in trouble or this bad thing will happen or whatever those messages can be.
Just to add a quick point, to make it as relevant as possible is so important. So you can't just say, to a child, be careful out there. And we all say that, by the way, as a parent of 2 kids. You have to give them situations, very lightweight situations. What's an example? Well, if you're on a street corner, look left, look right, look left. A car might be sneaking up or turning right. So you have to give them these easy to understand, very real life scenarios so they can calmly, okay, I get it. I understand what I do when I come to a street corner.
And you have the visual of this adorable dog that's going through the scenario at the same time. So Bunny, you mentioned, and I was going to bring this up a little later, but you mentioned it as sort of needing to pivot because of our current environment. And I'd love to go back to COVID and what's going now, both in terms of the concept of social distancing and what that means for a kid, and also perhaps the concept of getting a vaccination. I've seen some of your videos, so I don't know where you are in that trajectory, but I'd love for you to speak to that.
So again, the word is pivot. We've expanded our reach by dealing with the situation at hand. There was no other place to go at the time. Earthquakes only happen every once in a while, and we don't have hurricanes here. And so we had to do it. We wanted to do it and be able to help the children understand that. So we have some very short videos explaining why we're wearing a mask, what social distancing is, trying to make the children understand that this isn't maybe a long-term situation, but for right now, they do have to learn this sort of scenario. I think with COVID, what happened is that we also got into some health situations. So safety wasn't the only area we were covering. We were asked by the Los Angeles Unified School District to make a video to show how the children are getting tested for COVID, not the vaccination yet, but getting tested, and making them understand how easy this is to do, and also showing that to the parents. So this is not just for the child, it's for the parents so that they can feel better about what their child's going to be going through. So I think what we've realized is that Rocket and any other characters that we might are safety ambassadors, and they're able to communicate whatever the message is. Right now it's health and safety. We don't know where that may lead us because we've been dealing with experts in lots of different fields who would like us to help them communicate their message. So I'm feeling really good about what we're able to do now, because this actually helped us realize that what Rocket can do is help everyone in any kind of messaging that they want to get across.
It sounds like sometimes there's a silver lining. It's hard to say that with so many deaths and, COVID still ever present in our lives. But there's a level of awareness that occurs as a result of bad things that happen. And I think that that's what you've been able to do is now, Rocket Rules really becomes a much broader platform to be able to provide health, safety, security in some ways for both the children and, you mentioned, which I think is so important, the parents.
First of all, there's a tremendous need for this kind of material, for Rocket's message. It doesn't exist. The groups, professional groups that we deal with go great, because there's a lot of material maybe for high school age children to talk about very sophisticated, important, timely issues. But the neglected group is 4 years old on up to 9. And so Rocket does an extraordinary job, a really good job of talking about serious subjects in literally bite-sized bits of information for comprehension purposes. And then you mentioned parents. We'd just like to add, it gives a common vocabulary to everybody, a common understanding, because the team, Bunny's group, has created activities, standards-based activities, pages for children, so that together they can engage in this in the classroom as well as at home, because everything's free and downloadable off the website. And again, everybody can echo, wherever the child is, at school or at home, can echo the same terminology, the same scenarios. Why? To reinforce the learning that's taking place and to apply that newly acquired knowledge.
And they're doing it not only within their families, but within their peer groups. But I want to capitalize on another thing that you said, which I think is so important, is the concept of it being a bite-sized piece of information that is discrete. And the reason I want to bring that up is there are plenty of amazing childhood programs out there, right? PBS has done a great job, but they do a whole scenario of a show, and it may be around an important issue, but the message may get sometimes lost or buried in the show itself, whereas yours are these bite-sized, very targeted messages. I think that's a huge distinction. And it would be really wonderful if this continued not only in Los Angeles, but in many, many other cities or nationwide. I have 2 questions kind of leading to that. One is, tell me about the character. And then the second, which is, sort of the expansion possibilities.
So the emergency preparedness portion of what we started, again, fire dogs are Dalmatians, and so it really just morphed itself in there. We kind of took what we had and said, okay, let's just build something that at least represents something that had to do with the fire department at the time, because that's who we were really dealing with. I think that having character that they can relate, that their children can relate to, is so important, and we got a great little guy that can explain just about anything to anybody. When we move into older children, we are probably going to have some friends for Friends of Rocket, and we've been asked to do many of those different things. But right at the moment, we're concentrating on. There's so many subjects that the children of the ages 4 to 9 need to know about, and now we've got fairness and kindness and diversity. There's so many other things that happened this summer, targeting those issues now. So we have a lot of work to do right now still with the younger children. What we're really hoping for here, obviously, is that they understand the entire message. But again, if they come out of this, a 5-year-old comes out of this with one little iota of information that they remember, That is great for us, particularly when you get into emergency preparedness with earthquakes and fires here. The firemen don't generally go into the schools until the children are in third grade. So they may get little tidbits here and there from something, but in reality, there's no real training for the kids, and they do know how to call 911. They learn that really young, so we know they're capable of doing it. So if we can also remind them to tell their parents that they need a smoke detector, or they need to put a to-go bag under their bed for an earthquake. I mean, there's just one or two of little things that they remember, and I think we're doing our job then.
I also love that the character is a puppy, so the age is a rather appropriate for elementary. And I love the concept of for slightly older kids, is it, or, expanding it in terms of friends, and would it be an older sibling or, something of that nature. So my other part to that question is, do you have plans to expand? I know we'll talk about sort of the programmatic and the other issues because you mentioned them, but expand in other locations because it's on the internet and people have access to, are other cities using this?
Our target has been Los Angeles because we have had so much work to do here recently, but we definitely have other programs going on in Colorado, in Aspen with the fire department, in New Orleans with the fire department, in Milwaukee we have a large program. So, the challenge is always getting it into the schools, that the schools need time to be able to use the program. But yes, we want it to be all over the nation. And we're happy to say that we're involved with an organization by the name of NASRO, which is the National Association of School Resource Officers. So those are the school resource officers for every school in the country. We hope that we will be able to expand through that organization also.
So walk me through from inception of an idea or a request for an area, and you mentioned a few, so you're in the throes of that now in terms of issues of social inequity and kindness you mentioned, and diversity, and I'm just wondering if you can walk us through some inception to, and I know those are in process, but share with us how that works.
What we want to do right now is we think it's important to have the people that we're working with invested in the subject matter that we're approaching. So at this stage, what we like to do is talk to, for instance, the people in the school district, say, okay, what do you need right now? What is it that you'd like us to work on? Because I think it's very nice to have an extended library of videos on a lot of different subjects. But right now, we would like to be able to target the subjects that they want to be involved in. Complement the curriculum that they're already using, rather than have them have to take special time to use something new and different from us. So that's what we're really working on now, is complementing what they already have, so that we will just be another vehicle for them to get that message that they're already required to do in the schools.
What's so nice about that is you get buy-in from the issues that they're dealing with, and so there's a greater investment on their end to either participate, and then I assume you find experts in the field of the subject matter to pick their brain. But Barry, you take it from here because I don't want to make assumptions.
So you're absolutely right. We create a small committee of people from the academic world of the district we're dealing with. We deal with the psychologists at the school district level. If it's traffic issues and away from the school issues, of course, you'll bounce it off knowledgeable safety people like law enforcement. And then we refine the message, because we know the age appropriateness of a child is you can't show a 30-minute video. You won't hold their attention. So it's kind of calibrated to the number of years they have, and we don't exceed it. So if someone's 5 years old, they're going to see a video less than 5 minutes, and more typically 3 to 4. But it's not just the video. To make the learning truly work, it's pulling on all the senses, audio and visual. And so we go back to the academics. Of course, Buddy and I both have an academic school background, and with someone else who is a special education specialist. We're going to create lesson plans to make it turnkey for the teachers. Here's the key questions to ask. Here's an activity. And by the way, when you're done, these are reflection questions to make sure it's sinking in. And then, we make recommendations like, well, have the child turn to their elbow buddy if they're in the classroom at the time. On Zoom, maybe it's a Zoom buddy, but have this sort of exchange to demonstrate that if you can articulate what you just learned, you're that much further along in comprehension. So my point is, after you pull together the experts and you refine the message, it's up to Bunny and myself to put it in language that is rocket language, and not academic, high-level academic. So I want to add one other thing. Our sensitivity is very high about the different learners that exist in a classroom. And therefore, in any given classroom, anywhere USA for the most part, but certainly LAUSD with its 600,000 kids, you are going to find English language learners, you are going to find special ed, you'll find gifted, and you'll find general ed. And a teacher is challenged. This is a very difficult job. Teachers are challenged to communicate and pass on the language to all levels of learners. That's a lot of differentiation. But we try to help the teacher by telling them, how to extend the lesson for the gifted, okay? And many of our videos are in English and Spanish. And Bunny was a leader in, let's take the earthquake, which is so relevant to the West Coast, and let's do it in 8 or 9 languages with our partners from the earthquake groups.
At Southern California Earthquake Center.
Yeah, so you'll find it in every language, major language that's relevant throughout the West Coast.
Wow.
But almost all our videos are done English, Spanish, again, to connect, because the kids are very good at picking up, if they're new to California, for example, they're very good at picking up the verbal part of it. But parents, who are just arriving aren't quite as quick sometimes. And so we make sure the same language and reflection questions is in Spanish to facilitate the learning.
I love the concept of the 5 senses. And you mentioned, audio and visual, but I imagine things like smoke and what does it smell like? I imagine you're using all of those senses in some way, and then teachers can build off of that.
That program started out with the Los Angeles Police Department. We ended up calling the actual entire program the Sense of Safety. They had some wishes and trying to educate children and also communicate with them in the neighborhoods and everything to engage with their community. And they thought that if we could put together some sort of activity book with information in it where the police that go out into the communities would have to share with the children and work with the children, whether it was their PAL program, whether it was officers that just happened to be, on the street with the children, that this would be a good way to connect. We work with them on the subject matters that they wanted us to put into the Sense of Safety, and we started the book. We made that book. We've now made a color storybook on something we call Use Your Senses. And then we have another activity book that is the Use Your Senses expanded version of the Sense of Safety with even more subject matters in it. So this is, again, giving the children a chance to understand why we need our eyes, why we will smell smoke, like you said. Our senses are really important. Plus, we include the 6th sense, which is really your gut feeling about maybe I shouldn't go over there just because it doesn't feel good.
You just read my mind on that one, because you're really teaching children at an early age to trust their innate sense of safety. And it's something that as we get older, we're talked out of, and it starts at that early age of, oh no, you don't have to worry, or that doesn't make sense, or you're overreacting, or whatever those messages are that we get. And so I absolutely love that you're honing in on building a skill that will be useful for that child for the rest of their lives.
Absolutely. They may not have learned fire safety or earthquake safety, but something will tell them that, wait, I shouldn't go over there, or, I need to cover my head because something might fall on me, just as an innate reaction. The sense of safety program is definitely going to be expanded because it is something that school police and the police department itself want us to work on with them. The community safety partnership that they have in Los Angeles is going to be out in the streets working with the children, and this is a program that they're going to be using to help engage with them and also teach them.
Rocket is, in addition to being an ambassador, he is a bridge. He's a bridge to the community. So he ties together various stakeholders in a community: parents, schools, teachers and staff, law enforcement, etc. We give children, again, guidance on when you see something or your gut instinct tells you something's not right, find a trusted adult. But that's a label. So now you have to give them examples, right, of a trusted adult. Of course, your parents and an uncle or aunt, but then there's teachers and are trusted adults, and school counselors are trusted, doctors and nurses, etc. So you start to fill the file in their brain, that schema that we talked about, so they have an understanding that's tied to their reality, their real world. Oh, okay, trusted adult. I don't like this situation. I better find a trusted. And it begins to also get into Bunny's earlier subjects about socio-emotional issues. Don't bottle it up. Talk to somebody.
Oh, that's great. In some ways, you're staving off aspects of unmanaged sadness or any feelings that can come with things where kids bottle them up or stay quiet. It could be a whole myriad of things. So it's really remarkable. So I want to ask you both, and this may be a tough question a little bit, but I'd like you to think back. And Bunny, since this was really a brainchild early on, you may have to think way back, but I want to get sort of a feeling. What was your feeling when that launched and loaded? Or a feeling when you were in a classroom, when we were in classrooms, and you saw a group of kids watch that video and their reaction? What was your reaction?
Well, first of all, the first video was a very interesting time for us because I made a cold call to someone who I got a flyer on that was involved in earthquakes. I made this cold call to this gentleman. His name is Dr. Dennis Milletti, and he actually returned my phone call. and we started to talk, and as it turned out, he is this extremely prominent earthquake expert who happens to basically live in my backyard, even though his area code was from Colorado. And when we started working together, he was so generous with his time and everything that the experience of making the first video, which was the, really, really, truly best time of our life, because I got to know him, and he also introduced us to so many new people at USGS Geological Survey, at the Southern California Earthquake Center, and the whole thing made sense right then. Then showing it to children, which then they did also, was really phenomenal because they had never had anything like this to support the earthquake program before. Because it's not as if people go into schools and talk so much about earthquakes. They talk about fires, and maybe on the East Coast they may talk about hurricanes or tornadoes or something. But here, earthquakes are important, but no one really goes in and say, okay, we're having earthquake day, we're going to talk about it. They have the Great Shakeout, which is once a year in October, but other than that, there was nothing. So for them, it actually was seeing them get excited before I even saw the children get excited about it, because they had no way of getting this information to children, and children were the most vulnerable in an earthquake. That was really an important part for me, just to help them out, because they didn't have this help. And we did some assemblies early on. And the first time, we do have another situation where we're able to do some interactive live calls with Rocket. It's a whole nother part of our program. But the children just loved Rocket, and really and truly they were actually talking to Rocket, and they talked about Rocket after the assembly. We ran into some children and we overheard them talking about Rocket, and they didn't even know we were there. So the point is, it is really gratifying. I mean, it's really gratifying for me, and that's really all we're trying to get out of this. It's time to give back in our lives, and it's a good feeling.
And it's very reaffirming that what you're doing is making a difference. Barry, what about you, that feeling that was evoked in you?
Well, if you're in the presence of children while they're watching this in a small assembly or in the classroom, what you notice is, first of all, they're all, transfixed to Rocket on the screen. That's number one. And that's part of the engagement you must have in the classroom. If they're all looking around and playing with pencils, you've lost them. And, having been in the classroom for so long, kids are the best. They can see through things very quickly. They know if you're the real deal as a person. And to them, Rocket is the real deal. It's sort of like, I connect to this cute little Dalmatian doggy, and I'm listening. And so that means the likelihood that your message will get through. That was my impression the first time you watch them, is that, wow, they're really focused, and they follow up enthusiastically with questions, about the subject matter. So when the light bulb goes on and you see that and the eyes are fixed, that's a really good feeling.
I love that. Go ahead, Bunny.
I was just going to say the other thing that we've done quite a bit of is going to safety fairs for this, either an emergency management group, for the cities, for LAPD, for LAUSD, whatever safety fairs we've been to. But we have a mascot of Rocket also. He walks around. One of the best stories that we had we were at a safety fair at Magic Johnson Park a couple of summers ago, and it was for special needs children. That was the organization that put it on. It was for everything emergency preparedness, but that was the organization. And there was a child that was in a wheelchair, and I guess was able to come out of the wheelchair, at certain times. This child got up out of the wheelchair, and the mother says, first of all, he hardly ever does that, and went over and grabbed Rocket. And she said he is usually so afraid of any of this kind of, characters or anything, Disney characters or anything. Something about it, I don't know, could have been the color, whatever it was, just connected with Rocket. And I'd have to tell you that it still kind of almost brings tears to my eyes, because this child was severely, impaired in a lot of different ways in development and everything, but there was Rocket. Tugs at your heart.
It tugs at your heart. That gives me goosebumps, just that story. And what Barry said about being the real deal, that kids know, they have an innate sense of sort of who's real and who's not. So I really want to dedicate this podcast to the real deal. The real deal. Rocket, the real deal. He might have a new name, the real deal. I'm teasing. As you may know, Small and Gutsy podcast always has quick and gutsy questions at the end. So if you don't mind, there are just a few quick and gutsy questions I'd love to ask you both before we close out. The first one is, what is at the top of your wish list? However, the answer cannot be money or funding.
So for me, obviously, we want this message to get out to as many people as possible. This has become my goal, and what I really want to spend a lot of time on. And I think spending that time, the more time I spend on it, the more I realize how many children need help with so many different things. We can only do so much. It's just, we only have a few on our staff, but the point is we really want to make that difference. And I think that with the partners that we have right now, we're going to be able to make some of that difference anyway. And I think that's the only thing we can wish for, is that we're helping and making that difference.
And we hope Small and Gutsy is a little piece of that to try to get the message out for you. Barry, what about you?
Yeah, I would say that the vision would be this national rollout, that this material is mandated in every school, because we're creating this package of material turnkey for the teachers. So
I love
that allows us hopefully to move it from several 100,000 children to tens of millions of kids under a mandated program. And we know a product of that vision is we're saving lives or serious injuries, because in any given moment, seconds may make a difference of whether that child makes a decision that ends up in death or serious injury. So if they have all this stuff in their brain and they're using their senses and they have great awareness of what's around them, it increases the likelihood that the right decision will be made at the right time, when split seconds can make a difference.
What a beautiful wish. I wish too that it gets mandated. It's a necessary program, and so I'm on board with that. Anything I can do to help, I will help. If you were to think of a song that describes Rocket Rules, what would it be?
I would jump in there without giving it a whole lot of thought as "Don't worry, be happy."
I love it. That's
This
great.
is Rocket's demeanor. With calm information, you don't have to go through the world afraid. You can be happy and calm. You've got the information, but be happy.
I think that's great. Bunny, what about you?
When I wish upon a star.
Oh, I love that too. Oh, that's great. I think those are great. What makes Rocket Rules gutsy? Because you're definitely gutsy. So what makes Rocket Rules gutsy?
Okay, so in my mind, the best part of what we're doing right now is being able to customize the message. So this is where we're meeting a lot of the people that we're meeting. We're not trying to force any information down their throat. We're now asking them, what message is it that you really want to convey? What is it that you're trying to get out to the people that you, even if it would be another nonprofit for that matter, we'd like to help. And this is a way to do that. And so I think most of the time, there's a lot of programs, they have one way of doing things and they go out to everybody that same way. It's expensive to customize. It's, everything has to be different each time we do it. But I think that that's what's special about what we're doing right now. The vision is great, that we want to help these kids get as much information as possible, but I don't want to force anybody to do anything that's not, in their interest. And I think there's probably some there's some good canned information that we have, for sure, but someone might want to put it in their own words, and they may have, a different way of saying how they want to teach fire safety or any subject. So I think that makes us a little bit gutsy, that we're willing to take that risk and make something special for each person that we're dealing with.
Yeah, I love that. I think that's great. It's really tailored in a particular way, and it's really about their needs, not about what you want to produce. Barry, same question.
I think what makes Rocket gutsy is he has the capacity he can take on any subject, the most serious subjects, and break it down. Because in a very thoughtful, well-calibrated, bite-sized version, to give kids age-appropriate information. Give us the seriousness, and we'll break it down surrounded by our experts to make sure, we're hitting all the key points. And so I think it's gutsy to take on what are the most serious problems and be able to deliver a real thoughtful, simple, friendly message appropriate for kids.
Oh, I couldn't agree with you more. And doing it in a way, as you mentioned earlier, that doesn't create anxiety, but it creates calm and thoughtful digestion so that a child knows what to do. It's really skill building in so many ways. What is something that outsiders or maybe even insiders don't know about Rocket Rules?
Well, that may have been it right there. Again, I think when we started out, we were sending out videos to everybody and showing them what it is that we could do on a particular subject, but not necessarily, as you stated before, having them be invested. in our program. So personally, I think that really is a key to it, is just being, again, able to customize these things so that it's important to them.
It is. That's a really good point. Barry, any other things that maybe haven't already been said that's either insiders or outsiders don't know?
I think there's a tendency to not fully appreciate, when you're first being introduced to Rocket, the power of engagement when a child connects to serious content through a very friendly little character. And Rocket as a bridge to very serious material is not, you love the character, but the deeper thought is, guess what? Your child does too. And that connection allows you to have a common dialogue. And so that power is realized eventually, when you really think about, gosh, what's happening behind the scenes here? My child loves this character. He's delivering. So it's the power of Rocket, what's really going on.
That's really a great point. You may not even realize it till it starts to take hold.
We have always given everything away free to everybody, including from the very beginning with any of the sculptures that we did. And sometimes giving stuff away free is not as easy as you think, because I think a lot of people think that there's an agenda behind what you're doing. And it's one thing about our organization. My husband and I literally just are lucky enough to be able to give back. And that's all really we want to do. All nonprofits don't have to do what they do. They do it because they have a passion for things and that they love what they're doing and that they want to help. But I think that's a really interesting point, because there were times when we were trying to give away things and people looked at us like, well, who are you? Why do you want to do this? And I'm going, my God, that's a strange question that I never thought I would have. Having been in business after teaching school, I thought, my God, people usually take something for nothing all the time. But but there are people who are weary of it. So it just that we are here just to help. And again, that's all we're looking to do.
Right. It's that vision that you want to bring to life is really the insider and outsider may not realize that this is really altruistic. I mean, there really are people who are good, who are doing great work. And the two of you have really demonstrated that. So my last quick and gutsy question is, if you could get one celebrity or influencer to endorse or talk about your rocket, who would it be?
Well, look, you could say Oprah, you could say Ellen DeGeneres, you could say a lot of people. I mean, I guess a celebrity who appreciates, the fact that we're doing the work that we're doing, and that feels the same way about giving back. Again, even people who are in business, who have large corporations, that we know are giving back. That one took me by surprise. So I'm not sure exactly the correct person, but certainly there are influencers out there. You're right.
Any celebrity or name, regardless of the field, as Bunny pointed out, that has overcome barriers in their life, there's another level of credibility about, I've been there, I've overcome it, we all have it. It gives them more street credibility, in the discussion. But the message is, Rocket's message of leading a healthy, safe, calm life, one that with a good mindset, a mindset for safety, but a mindset for good health.
Well, and values that little kids, you want them to digest and feel safe about choices that they're making. So you're creating that opportunity for them to learn about how they might make a choice in a particular schema, as you said, or situation. So how should folks find you? What's the best way to find Rocket Rules?
Going on our website would be first and foremost, which is rocketrules.org. All of our personal information, our phone numbers and everything are on there. You can find our videos on YouTube if you don't go to our website under Rocket Rules videos. But that would be, the easiest way.
So I just want to thank Bunny and Barry for talking with me today and inspiring me with your dedication, the depth at which a program is created in collaboration and tandem with the needs that are out there. So it really comes from the environment, the school environment, the community environment to really meet those needs. And I really feel like I learned a great deal. And I just appreciate the two of you for dedicating really your lives to this vision and mission. And my hope and wish is that it comes true. And if there are ways that Small and Gutsy can help make that happen, we're here to do that.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Laura.
Our blog of these small and gutsy nonprofits and small social impact organizations can be found in the organizational stories section of the Intrinsic Group website so that we can continue to link clients, volunteers, future employees, and donors to this small but mighty network. Of course, we can't take responsibility outside of our own vetting of the organization we interview. So before you sign on to support or work for them, we encourage you to do your own due diligence and research them as well. We just want you to learn about the small and gutsy nonprofit and social impact organizational sector so they can spread their story and their very impactful work. I want to thank my partners in this endeavor, the Intrinsic Group, a management consulting firm specializing in guiding organizations to leverage talent, optimize processes, and ensure their narrative is aligned with their culture. The volunteers, my co-producer, sound engineer, and composer, Pavel Franson, and my graphic designer, Nate Addy, my social work intern extraordinaire, Stephanie Tran. Please check out their bios on the Intrinsic website and all the folks, friends, and family who have guided and inspired me. And thank you for listening. If you like this podcast, please share it with your friends, give us some stars, and write a review on wherever you listen to podcasts. And if you're interested in sponsoring Small and Gutsy to keep it going, please reach out to me at reachus@theintrinsicgroup.com or buy us a coffee at www.buymeacoffee.com/small and gutsy. So as you all know, we've started since our 10th episode to give shout outs to all of you who are giving a shout out to us. So here we go. Caroline Witkoff, love what you are doing. So important to share the stories of these incredible people and nonprofits. I agree, Caroline. Thank you. From small and gutsy to big with impact, I'm Laura Witkoff, and thanks for listening.